Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of my podcast. Today's podcast is entitled Just Take a Step. And as usual, I'm going to begin this episode with a quote. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. And that's the quote by Peart. People think that, when they come to a fork in the road or when it comes to making a decision, if they choose not to make a decision, they've kind of averted the problem or kind of skirted around what they had to do at that point in time. But even if we choose not to pick a path or be decisive at that point in time, we've made a choice, and that choice is not to be decisive. And we talk about it. I've talked about it in a lot of episodes. I repeat it over and over again a million times. I probably have said it 100 times. We reserve the power of choice. Like, that's our ultimate superpower. And choice is very powerful. And I don't think a lot of people understand how powerful it is to make a choice. And it doesn't always have to be the correct choice, because we're not perfect, and there's going to be times where we're just not going to make the right choice. We're going to make a bad call, we're going to make a bad decision. It's life. But the important thing is that you want to be decisive. You want to make a choice, because there are some situations where standing still and not making a choice and not doing anything can be just as bad or detrimental to you, both, in theory and in actual practice, that you have to make a choice, basically. Like, you need to make a choice. Like, standing still is still a choice. Not doing anything is still a choice. You have made a choice not to do anything, not to make an effective decision towards which way you want to go. Ultimately, choice comes down to belief. We pick and choose our beliefs, and our beliefs ultimately influence our choices. So it's basically like a big circle. It comes around full circle. So as we go through life, we interact with people, we go through situations, we experience different things. And at a young age, especially, that becomes our belief system, or that helps to create our belief system, that foundation, which we always revert back to, or we should, in those tough times, especially when we hit crossroads or forks in the road in life. And the choices we make, which then foster or help to create our belief system, that process ultimately will make it easier for us to make a choice when we face those forks in the road. Because if you already believe something, if it's already something that you value, that you see as the correct way to go about doing something, or that you have some way, somehow, through your life, through growing up, your experiences, you feel that this is something worth believing in, this is something worth standing up for. When you come into the fork in the roads in life, it should be easy, right? You should just be able to say no or yes, and then make a choice based on that, based on your belief system. But what I found out is that life operates in shades of gray. There's a lot of things that are, yes or no, simple answers. But then on the flip side of the coin, there's a lot of things that are opinion. It's not rigid. It doesn't stand true for everybody across the board. There are some things that are just from your viewpoint, from your side, you see it this way. But I'm sure that the other person on the other side of the decision you're making, in some instances, may see it in another way, or they may just not see it in the light that you see it in. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that based on your life experiences, your perspective, it makes your view look different than the other person, than the person that's standing on the other side of what your view may or may not be. So our beliefs influence our opinions, what we prioritize in our lives, our willingness level, and realistically every aspect of our lives at some level. At some level, our beliefs play a factor in what we do. I'm just going to use this because this is probably one of the biggest things that, make us decide or choose what we are and aren't going to do. But religion, whether you practice Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, whatever the religion may be. You know, a lot of people make decisions based on their religion because religions oftentimes have texts, the Bible, the Quran, and those texts tell people how to live or how they should ideally live or maneuver through life. So, in that respect, by choosing to be that religion, whether you feel like it wasn't a choice or it was forced upon you, you know, but by choosing to be that religion, you now have the Bible as the source for which you're gonna generate your beliefs and how you feel and your opinions and stuff like that. And then when you come to those forks in life, those decisions you got to make, you can fall back to, what does my belief system say? You know, what does it say about this? What does it say about that? And at least when I was heavy into Christianity, my belief system, you know, hinged on the Bible. So when I would come to the crossroad in life, I would consult the Bible first. I would be like, hey, what does the Bible say about this? You know, what does my mom say about this? What does my pastor say about this? What the church think? You know, what my friends and family think? That was kind of the progression through how I made decisions. And I made a lot of good decisions. I made some bad decisions. I'm not perfect, but ultimately it was my choice to follow Christianity at that point in time in my life that led me to make some of the decisions that I made. I'm in a different mindset now, and I make decisions based on a different schematic, on a based on a different, you know, system of, I don't even know what you would call it, but basically I make decisions based on different beliefs now. Like, I don't Chase at 20, Chase at 19, Chase at 21 is a totally different person than Chase at 30. You know, and it's because I've experienced life, I've gone through things, you know, reading books, talking to people, you know, being out in the real world, being in the military, you know, all of that has come together and helped me to form a foundation of what I believe is my truth and what I believe, you know, is my ideal way of making it through life. And, you know, it may not jive or vibe with a lot of other people's way of going through life or operating in life successfully. And with some other people, it may. You know, you can't agree with everybody, and you know, everybody isn't gonna see things from the same point of view, from the perspective that you have, and that's okay. You know, we're meant to be different. We're not all meant to be the same. You know, if we were all the same on this earth, it would be so boring. You know, the fact that we all have, you know, individuality and uniqueness about us, and a genuineness about us, makes people exciting. You know, makes it interesting to have friends and loved ones and significant others, because they add a component to your life that you may not have had if you would have just surrounded yourself by people who have the same ideas as you and just move like you move and stuff like that. Even though it's important, you know, that we surround ourselves with people that are positive and who contribute to our life positively, we definitely have to have a balance, because I have learned a lot of lessons from having negative people in my life just as well as having positive people in my life. Again, it's that dichotomy, you know, it's balance. You know, this stands true, but then there's also situations where this may be true as well. And, you know, again, the choice is to first understand and realize the dichotomy and understand that it is present, that everything is not black and white. And in some situations, it may be this, and in others, it may be that. But also understanding on the flip side of the coin, but there are some things that in your life, you're just going to have to draw the line. And that's the dichotomy, you know, the gray side, and then knowing where to draw the line, that I will ultimately not budge on this whatsoever. And it can be difficult at times. It can be very difficult at times, because there's, like, we live in 2021. We have access to information at our fingertips. We can type in Google. We can research anything, get the answer in minutes. How far is the moon away from the earth? We got that. But all of this information also can make it hard to exist because there's an argument for and against everything. There's people that believe the earth is round, there's people that believe the earth is flat, and there's arguments for and against that. There's people that believe that one political system is correct, and then there's arguments that argue equally that that same political system is evil. And it can be hard to make decisions based on all of this information because there's a lot of misinformation amongst the information. But what it basically comes down to is how you want to live your life. What's your truth? What's your truth? What do you believe? What do you stand for? What do you feel is the right way to live through life? And basically we just make our belief system off of that. And our system off of that is being an individual, not following the herd, trying to make your own way through life. In life, there will come times when our beliefs will be tested, when we have to make a choice to change our beliefs or to hold fast. I've had this happen to me. I can put a bookmark in my life at 25 years old. It seemed like 25 years old was, I don't know how to explain it, some type of rift or whatever, where I just began to question things and research and just fall in love with, finding out answers and coming up with new questions that I haven't thought of before. And going back to things that people had told me and reviewing it and giving it, my due diligence and finding out, the truth, what I could about the stuff that people were telling me. I think the major shift was my grandfather dying. He died around that time. And when I was going through life, he basically gave me, my foundation. He was like, always go to the Bible. And then he would always give me, little sideline information. It would be like mirrored in the Bible, but he would give it to me just a different way, his own personal way. But when I went through life, I would always do things, to make him proud, kind of to like honor my family. So when my grandfather died, I kind of thought, like, who am I doing this for? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's my purpose? And then, I just started questioning a lot of things, even though, in the grand scheme of things, I definitely still had a purpose and I still had a mission on this earth. I wasn't born just to, exist just to make my grandfather happy. That's not why I was born. It was a large part of my life. It was a central part of my life. And it was the focus of my life for many, many years. But when, he passed, I hit that wall where I had to, reconcile with myself, what you believe, what should you do from this point forward, and, how are you going to go about it. And a lot of the lessons that he told me, I've kept, and it's helped me throughout my life. And then I made some additions on top of that. I've read some more books. I've done some more research. I've talked to a lot more people. I've broadened my horizon. Instead of looking through like a telescope, now I have this whole much bigger field of view. And when I have come to these forks in the road and I've had to make decisions, I make the best decision I feel I can make with the information that I have present at that point in time. I try not to be indecisive. I try not to go over every perfect situation, because sometimes you have the ability to do that, like draw things out, see what may work, what may not work. And then other times you just got to act. Every time isn't the time to just act, and every time isn't the time to sit down and plan. Again, it's that dichotomy, that flip side of the coin. But you have to know which time is appropriate and then act accordingly. Because not planning can get you in trouble, but then also not being decisive in the appropriate time can also get you in trouble. It's tricky. It's tricky. And I haven't really found out the perfect balance. but I'm working on it. And I'm getting closer. I'm closer than I was at 19. I'm closer than I was at, 21, because at that point in time, I was decisive, but my decisiveness was based on what I feel now, looking back at the situation, was a faulty, well, not faulty, but maybe a very narrow belief system, a very, it wasn't all encompassing. I just, like I've said in podcast episodes before, like back when I was young, I was very binary. I tried to think like a computer, like either good or bad. If you do this, you're bad. If you don't do this, you're good. If you are this, you're good. If you're not this, you're bad. And I just tried to put things in ones and twos, and that helped me make decisions fast. But I'm not saying that every decision I made based on that system was a great decision or was a good decision. I could have made better decisions at some point in time, some points and times in my life, but we're human. You can't be scared to make decisions. You got to make decisions with the best information that you have presently at that point in time. The decision needs to be one that aligns with your goals, your truth. And it's important that you know what your truth is, because this world will try to tell you what the truth is. That this person's bad, this government's bad, this political party's bad, or you shouldn't have this or you shouldn't do that. And they'll make an argument for it, and the argument will be very compelling. And I feel one of the issues we face in society today is that a lot of people let the media make decisions for them. Like here recently, they announced the gas shortage, and people were just, I think their behavior contributed more to the gas shortage than the issue with the pipeline. Just my opinion, because once they heard that there was a gas shortage, people started wilding out. At least I know in North Carolina. And all in all, I feel like that may have contributed in some part to the shortage as well. But at the end of the day, like, you have to know what your truth is. You have to stand up for your truth, what you believe is right, what you believe is admirable and honorable and the right thing to do for yourself and others. You don't want to go through life living selfishly, not thinking about others, because it's definitely not all about you. And there are other people that depend and benefit or suffer from the decisions that you make, whether we see it or not. So it's important that we go through life not only with our goals in mind, but understanding what our truth is, what we believe or what we don't believe to be true in this world, and how we're going to live our life accordingly based on that truth. And it could be religion, it could be spirituality, it could be political beliefs, it could be, anything. It covers a lot. There's so many things that we can see as true or false, again, with all this information that we have out here. But it's your job to go through all of that information, decipher the information, and see what you feel in your heart of hearts and with your reasoning in your mind is true for you at the end of the day. The fork in the road can result in growth. Don't be scared to change. Don't let that fear of the unknown halt your growth, because in life, everywhere you look, if there isn't growth, then basically you cease to exist. If any organism is born and it doesn't grow, then in some form or fashion, grow, evolve, mature, not only internally but like externally or physiologically, if you don't grow, you die. And you can't go through life being scared of the unknown, because it's the unknown. There's a lot of growth to be had. There's a lot of things that you're going to go through that are going to be scary, but at the end of the day, they're going to make you better. And you might not see it at that present moment in time, but looking back at it like I do now, like there was a lot of things that I went through that at the end of the day have made me a better person. And I'm thankful that I went through those things, even though at that present time, they may have been extremely difficult and extremely hard. I look back at it now and I feel like I'm the individual I am today because of the things that I went through in life and the things that I chose to put myself through. Not only that life, made me go through, but the things that I chose to go through at such an early age definitely had an effect or impact on my life the way it is now. Even in, ways that I can't see and can understand still yet, directly looking at it, I can see that it had you know, a lot of an effect on where I sit presently in my situation. At the end of the day, you always reserve the right to choose. And even if it seems like you don't have a choice, you do. So you have a choice. You always have a choice. Even if you're in a situation when it seems like you don't have a choice, you have a choice. You always have a choice. Like, just when you're in a situation and you feel like you don't have a choice, try to detach from the situation. Detach from the situation, try to look at all the pieces from a broad view, and you'll be able to see you have a choice. Like, even if you're in a situation you feel like, hey, I have no choice, I got to go this way, I got to go that way. Well, number one, that's a choice, and you could choose to create another way. It's not simply two decisions. It's not binary. It's not yes or no. There are a lot of different possibilities, a lot of different options, and you can choose to go whichever one you want to. If the world says that sports is the only way that you could obtain money, gain fame, go to college and stuff like that, there's a lot of other different ways that you can obtain some of those goals without playing sports. I said that because I feel like there's a lot of kids out there, children out there, that feel like the only way to obtain their dream, excuse me, the only way to obtain their dream is to play sports. And that's not the case. There's a lot of other ways out there that you can go about obtaining a dream. You just have to sit down and map it out. That's one of those times where you have to sit down and you have to map it out step by step, or at least make some tick marks so that along the way, hey, I'm getting closer to my goals. I'm getting closer to my idea of success, where I envision as a successful individual or a successful person. When we don't know what else to do at the end of the day, if we're stuck at a crossroad, if we don't know to the left or right, if we feel we don't have any other options, just take a step. Just take a step in either direction, and at the end of the day, at least you made a decision. And if it's the wrong decision, then now you have more information than you had before you took the step, and you can take corrective actions to get yourself on a different path or back on track. You know what I'm saying? You can't go down the path and be too far gone. I'm sorry, my nose is stuffy. You can't be too far gone that you can't correct the decision that you've made. A lot of people feel like, oh, I'm too far gone, I'm too lost. I've made a series of bad decisions to get me to where I am, and I just can't go back. I can't backtrack. Well, you don't need to backtrack, to get to a better place. You can move forward, just move on a different path, make different decisions, make different choices with more information, choices where at times you sit down and actually plan things out instead of being, just action oriented immediately, or operating off of impulse, because operating off of impulse can get us in a lot of trouble. And again, with the flip side of the coin, operating off of impulse, if you go through training and you have education and research behind you at the time of the decision, acting off of impulse can be a good thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of situations in my military training that if I got in situation A, just because of my training, I would act off the impulse. I'd be decisive because my training has given me that benefit, that foundation from which I can instantly make decisions off of. But if you act impulsive without having any information behind you, without having any type of rationale for that impulsivity, then you might springboard yourself into a worse situation. And again, that's the dichotomy, because sometimes you're not going to have all the information. Sometimes you're not going to have, everything at your fingertips, so you can just lay things out and make the best, decision as possible. Sometimes you're just going to have to take a step, just to operate in faith and, maneuver in hope, and just get through life the best way you can get through at that point in time. We always have a choice, and don't let other people take your choice away. Don't let other people take your ability to affect your own life away. Even if we're in the worst condition possible, even if we're, down bad, or we're down and out, or we feel like we have three strikes against us, and just the world is turned his back on us, God's turned his back on us, and none of that is true. The universe doesn't turn their back on you. God hasn't turned their back on you. Ultimately, we need to reevaluate ourselves. Look at the decisions that we've been making. See how we can make decisions better. And even though it may be extremely difficult, it doesn't mean that it's impossible. At the end of the day, we reserve the right to our lives. It's our book, it's our story. We can decide to start the book. We can decide to start a new chapter. We can decide to turn the page, and ultimately we can decide to close the book. It's up to us. We have that choice. We need to be strong in that, and that comes from building that foundation that we've talked about, which helps to influence and create that belief system, and that belief system in turn may help you to make decisive decisions in the right settings, and every day and every way you want to be better. Every day and every way you want to be better. And I made this episode because in my life I have really been trying to apply this stuff to myself, and not just in a passive type of way, but in a direct type of way. Like, I sit down and like talk to myself like, hey, right now, what could you be doing, or is what you're doing serving you right now? And I try to actively pursue this information that I talk with you guys about. And I've just been making choices here lately, like, and I'm just looking back at myself, trying to see if they align with what I believe in, and if I think they're gonna lead me to a productive day or productive period of my life. Like, for instance, and I'm going to talk about this, but you're not a bad person if you do, and you're not a bad person if you don't. But personally, I don't do this a lot. I usually do it when I'm bored, but I understand a lot of people do it to relieve stress and just to chill, kick back, and do what they do. But video games, like yesterday, I was playing a video game. I really didn't know, what my podcast was going to be about. I kind of had a long day, so I was just sitting, kicking back, playing the video game. And then, like, as I was playing the video game, it was kind of getting monotonous. Like, I had already beaten the video game. I just started a new campaign all over again, and I was going through it. And, I was sitting thinking, like, what could I be doing right now that would be productive? What could I be doing right now that would help put me a couple steps closer to my goal? And then, I turned off the game and I sat down and I drew up a podcast. I was like, I could be doing this so that I could wake up tomorrow morning, I record the podcast, and instead of creating it late or being behind the eight ball, I would already be ahead of the game, and I could just create it and keep it rolling. And that decision has made today start off a whole lot better. I'm talking with you guys. It's made things a whole lot easier. So something as simple as that, now it helps me start off my Monday appropriately, or on the right foot, already taking steps toward my success. So that's all I'm saying. Just take the time to evaluate your choices and see if you're making the best choice with the information that you have presently at this time, and does it align with your truth and your goals.